Hello, everyone. This is Francis Osorio, and today we have the pleasure to meet Alejandro Santa Cruz, which is an HR professional in the construction industry. And we will be talking today about HR in the unionized environments or the unionized workplaces. We will learn a bit on how it works and which is the process to follow through when you are in a unionized environment, which are the difficulties that we will embrace during this situation. Welcome, Alejandro.
Thank you, Francis.
So, first of all, we would like to know a bit about which would be the biggest challenge that an HR professional will face in a unionized environment.
I think that the biggest challenge would be try to develop the trust of the union to start working together. The big difference is that in a union environment, you don't have to worry only about your policies or your employees. You also have to worry about what the limitations of the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, is going to bring through to your implementation of different HR policies.
You mean that when you have already a union, we have to have like the CBA,
Yeah,
and from there is that we go to follow through any other decisions that we're going to make in the company, right?
yeah. Depending on how involved is the union in your regular operations. So, for example, I also work in the educational sector. In education, most of the operations, like professors, administrative support employees, they were part of the union. So any decision that HR wants to implement, any decision that HR wants to make, usually it needed to take into account the union environment, the union's regulations. These regulations are set up in the collective bargaining agreement. But for example, I'm working now in the construction sector. Most of our employees that are working on site, they are unionized. So, for example, if we want to prepare a incentive program, we have to take into consideration the collective agreement for them. But for our employees, the administrative employees, they are not unionized. So, for example, for procurement, finance, HR, if we want to create a short-term incentive plan, it's up to us. We can decide how that is going to work.
So, see, if they're not unionized or because they are part of the management, they do not have to be unionized. And that's why you can make decisions regardless. But when it comes to the actual unionized employees, then you need to make the decisions accordingly to the bargaining agreement that you already have with them.
Yes.
Okay. So my next question will be, how then HR roles differs from a unionized environment and a non-unionized environment?
It's a little bit more of the same. In unionized environments, you have to be really careful about what the CBA is going to allow you to do. For example, most CBAs usually regulates the salaries, the rates, hourly rates, mostly hourly rates. I have not seen salary rates in a CBA because usually employees under CBA are working on site. The type of positions are mostly hourly. Even if, for example, in the education sector, some professors, some employment advisors, job counselors, all those positions they are working hourly. So rates is going to be pay rates are going to be decided by the CBA. That's the difference in a non-unionized environment, where the company can decide, for example, to this set of employees that did a great work, we are going to give them a 5% increase rate. To the other employee who didn't make such a big work, they are going to
Performance.
get only 2%.
All right. So when it comes to an unionized environment, we have to be careful on what we decide for them when it comes to salaries and changes. But when it comes to general employees, we can make decisions according to performance and according to the goals that the company has, right?
Yes. Even more, for example, my specialization is total rewards. So that's why I talk a lot about compensation, salary raise, because that's what I did. Even, for example, for benefit plans. if I want to change the benefit plan for my employees in a non-unionized environment, I can, for example, remove. Now, for example, we provide benefits. The employee doesn't pay. But if we want to improve the benefit plan and that is going to be an additional cost, we can decide to pass that cost to the employees. Of course, then we have to inform the employee, we have to let them know, but we can do it. In a union, we also have unions. For them, for sure, we are not going to change any of their benefits because if we want to change any benefit for them, we would go to mediation, arbitration. We wouldn't be honoring the collective bargaining agreement.
Oh, wow. So it gets difficult when you have a unionized environment because definitely you need to be negotiating that much with them and making sure that they are aware of the changes.
Exactly.
All right. And so, how do you build trust and collaboration within the union representatives?
I think that the first thing is transparency. For example, I know from a colleague that he also works in pension benefits. They found that there were some errors in how the pension amounts were being calculated.
Mhm.
So the company could have decided, okay, we found it, we correct it, and nobody needs to know about it. But part of being transparent with even the bad thing that you found is to communicate that to the union. Because you don't know, for example, if, yeah, maybe they didn't know about it now, but what happened if at the end of the year and because of tax purposes, an employee is reviewing their T4s and then they found out, oh, they didn't pay the correct amount for my pension now. And then you are going to have a big issue. So transparency, even if it's going to be against your objectives or
Your
it's going to
desires.
be yeah, it's going to be against the company. It's good to be transparent about those things. Other thing is try to engage proactively with the union. If you see that something is going to be an issue in the future, try to have this good relationship with them. And the last one would be really focus on commitment to the CBA.
So, like demonstrating that you are on their on their behalf, also trying to get things done accordingly and in compliance with the agreement will definitely build the trust with them.
Exactly. Because the idea is that we are people, so we are going to make mistakes in some moment. It's better if the unions see that whenever there is an error, there is an issue, it was because of a human error against that it was like a bad decision that the company wanted to make.
Yeah, totally. All right. And what do you think an HR professional or an HR department might need to prepare or they be working on before they get into a bargaining or collective bargaining?
So the first thing would be the past bargaining agreements. Review with past CBAs allows you to know a little bit of the history. Also, a little bit of talking with the people who were implementing this bargaining agreement. I know, for example, the same colleague, because he was aware of the history of this pension plan. It wasn't properly written that the employees were going to receive, I think it was RRSP contributions for all the hourly work. It only said like for hours work, but it didn't, it wasn't clear if it was going to be,
It
for
wasn't
example,
specific.
yeah, with overtime or without overtime. So knowing the history and talking with the people who implemented this, the last bargaining agreement, it was really useful. Know the financial statements for the company. So you know, for example, what is your leeway when you are going to negotiate about salaries? Are you really able to secure that you are going to pay that 3, 4, 5% salary increase every year based on your financial statements? And last one would be past grievances, past mediations, minutes, because it's also good to know what were the causes or the main issues before. So in the new CBA, you can take into account, well, what were the errors from the last one.
And also, you did mention earlier, like there are many unions at the same time. So we're supposed to be checking the agreements that we already have with that specific union. And then if we are one HR with many unions, then we have to be taking care of each of them.
Yeah. And it's very common for big organizations to have many unions inside the organization.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Usually
makes it
when,
difficult or harder, right?
yeah, I know of organizations that have 20, 30 unions. Yeah, try to manage because, for example, for one union, the salary rate is this and this, and the vacation schedule is this. For the other union, it's X and Y. So it's different. That's why I said that it's way more different to implement any new kind of HR policy.
And it's only one HR department.
Yeah, it's only one HR department.
Oh, wow. All right. And so which you think would be the biggest challenges in negotiations and how you think it should be handled?
I think that the situation for the we experienced a couple of months ago with Canada Post would be like a big show of what are the biggest challenges. Balancing employee expectations with the financial constraint of the business is the biggest challenge of all. Because the company, okay, some employers want to be competitive in the market. So
Mhm.
they want to give a little bit more leeway on salary, benefits, all kind of total rewards model. But if your financial results are not able to do that, then it's difficult to find a good
A
balance.
balance.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so in this case, that like also we're going through the trust situation again. Like if we are negotiating, we have to have the correct information in hand, and also try to let them know that we're making this decision because of this results, because of previous CVAs and all the things, the history that we already have. All right. So, how do you think that HR ensures compliance with collective agreements once they are already in place?
I think that the main thing, and it's going to be very obvious, know the collective bargaining agreement. It's so important. HR is not going to be able to be in all the sites. So, and more, for example, if we are talking about a huge company with different locations, can be manufacturing, can be retail, it's impossible for HR to be in every place. So, regular training to managers on site, to the people who are going to be representing that company, it's very important. And they don't have to know like every single step, but at least the most important, like the day to day, it's really important. And that's a responsibility of human resources. Human resources should be in charge of, okay, we know that in this location we have three unions, we only have one manager, so it's our responsibility to create a good training and development process so this manager knows what he can do and what he cannot do.
And where to refer to the CVA particularly, because
Yeah.
if he has the information handy, he might be able to come up with solutions according to it.
Yeah. So, for example, in most CBAs, the return to work policy after you've been laid off depends a lot of seniority. So, if the manager doesn't know that, and when employees are laid off and then they are going to be returned to work, he might choose which, in my opinion, is correct. He might choose based on performance. He might choose, for example, the younger, if we're talking in construction, he might be choosing the youngest person because they are more energetic for a general labor position, and not to recall the most senior employees for general labor position. But that can be against the CBA. So if it's a new
Hmm.
manager, they don't know what the CBA says, then we have a grievance in process.
Because
Yeah.
if we set up something regarding the tenure and then we decide something based on logic or performance, then he might be against it.
Yeah. So another thing that's also useful to ensure that we are going to be compliant, it keep a way to track to monitor the system, to keep track
Okay.
of all these small issues that may come up.
Oh yeah, like the recurrent situations so we can track them and then and train the managers so they know about these situations that happened maybe recently and they know how to handle it in the future in the case that it happens again.
Yep, that's
All
important.
right. Okay. And then how do you handle the grievances and disputes relating to the collective agreement?
In those cases, to be honest, is try to aim for the lowest level of escalation. In most CBAs, you are going to find that even when there is a grievance or when a good CBA is going to have what is going to be the process to deal with a grievance. It's in the best interest of the company to make sure that the first step is going to be just talking between management and the union. The second step is go to mediation, not arbitration. The big difference between mediation and arbitration, mediation is just, for example, let's imagine I'm representing the company, you represent the union, and we have a third party. Whatever we decide is going to be a mediation between both of us. And this third party is just going to help us to get to the point of, to the goal that both of us are kind of okay, or kind of happy with the final result. But in an arbitration process, this third party is also going to be neutral, but whatever this third party decides is what we have to do. And whenever you put that final decision on a third person, it's a little bit tricky. So handling a
It might
grievance
not
is,
be what we're looking for.
yeah, but maybe something that is really against you.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to mediation, overall, the first step is just having the conversation within the supervisor and manager internally and try to come up with a solution. But if not, then we can get a third party that can help us make a decision and agree without a forced decision. Because when we go to arbitration, then the decision is definite.
Yeah. And that's important to have this clear process in the CBA. It's good to have, and this is just before you go into grievance. When you already have a grievance issue, then I think that in those cases, the most important thing is detailed documentation to avoid the thing that you said, I said. It's difficult to deal, to know who said the
And what
correct
it
thing.
said.
Yeah, because then you have to prove it. And if you don't have
Yeah.
detailed documentation of the issue that created this grievance, it's going to be really difficult to prove it in court.
Now I'm wondering, do you get like to get testimonials or something during this type of process, or maybe the
Um,
arbitration?
Testimonials I've not seen. I've heard of similar situations, but when you already go into and you go outside of arbitration, now you are in a legal process. Then you, you get testimonials. In
Oh, okay,
arbitration,
okay.
it's mostly, for example, you have the company side with all their experts, their specialties, the managers, the finance department, everybody there. The union that also have their own team. So it's more a discussion, not like a bad discussion where you are arguing, you are fighting. It's just trying to both people push what is best for their own party.
And so after arbitration, the company could come up with a next step, which will be going like suing.
No, after arbitration is the last part. I
Okay.
mean these legal issues when, I don't know, something illegal would need to happen. For example, my employment, my ESA is really rusted, so I'm not going to be able to remember the full details. But I remember that there were some cases where, for example, even if the employee stole property from the company,
Company property.
property company, if you don't have detailed documentation, you don't have proof, or even if you just fire the employee with cause, you might end up in a legal situation where you have to, I don't think reinstate the employee, but you may have to pay the employee. And if it's involved, if the union is involved, then there is another set of complexity to this kind of issue.
It's get definitely harder.
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right. And then how you think like are the trends when it comes to remote work? automation or DEI initiatives when it comes to unionize employees?
I think that is going to depend a lot on the demographic of of the union. If you see, for example, a union at the Starbucks, they may not care much about working from home because that's not an option. But DEI initiative that might be important for them. If you see, for example, an educational union, it's really important for them to be able to work from home. If you see, for example, the health sector, a unionized environment for nurses, the importance of being able to have a flexible schedule might be more important than other aspects because they may be mothers who need to have this flexibility to handle or to manage
To work
family
remotely.
priorities. Yeah,
So it's definitely gonna depend on which are the priorities for each employee, but that the unionized initiatives or activities will be taking place.
yeah, exactly. For example, it's going to be really difficult to find a construction union that is pushing the DEI initiatives. You're not going to find much because the percentage of men and females is really up on the male sector. But you're going to find that they are pushing more for increased wages, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a different priority, totally. All right, and then which will be my last question. Which advice would you give to HR professionals entering into an unionized workplace?
I think would be a summary of the things that we talked before. Is like building trust, building a strong relationship with the union. It's important, and I don't mean that whatever the union says you have to do it. It's like that's why you have a CBA. If the union wants to go over the CBA, trying to push more things for their own people, the CBA is also a tool for you to say, "Hey, we only said that this was possible, and this is all the things that we are going to do. We are not going to go above of this." Why? Because in the next CBA, if you see, for example, that the employees need more flexibility on their work from home or on their scheduled hours, then that's a point that you can bring on the negotiation on your behalf, on the company behalf. If you're willing to do it, then that's an option. Other is a good understanding of collective of the CBA. Well, what I said before is like be sure that anybody who is going to be 24/7 working with a union, they need to know what are the key points on the CBA.
Right. So, as a general, taking the key points for this conversation tonight, we need to build the trust with the unionized representatives that we already have in place, making sure that they know that we are working in behalf of the company and as well considering their needs and their priorities as well. And also the fact that we already have to have during the CVA, we have to have a process for how we going to manage the conflicts, how we going to resolve the situations that may arise. First of all, talking, then mediating, and then going through arbitration, and understanding that when we go to the last step, the decision might be enforced and it's not probably what we would like to have. And the latest thing about the advice for the new employees or new HR professionals getting into an unionized environment is knowing the CVA, not necessarily learn it, but know how to find the information that you may need before you make any decision and before you try to solve anything, because you can make mistakes if you don't know which are the ways for you to resolve that.
Yes,
So I would like to thank you very much, Alejandro, for having the time to talk to us and teach us a bit about the unionized environment and the HR role when it comes to it. And I would like to thank you all for being here and listen to this podcast. And I encourage you to give your comments down below. If you have any questions as well, we can help you with that. Thank you very much for being here. Thank
thanks a
you.
lot. Take care.